Welcome back to the Wickedly Branded podcast. I am Beverly Cornell, the founder of Wickedly Branded, and we're talking all about Chapter 12 from the Marketing for Entrepreneurs Revised Edition of the book. It's the quick guide to sparking your marketing, and Chapter 12 is all about being consistent and captivating. So we are going to step into something that tends to be a little vulnerable, I believe, today, even for women who already are showing up regularly. People who've been posting, people who've been writing, people who've been sharing, maybe following all the previous chapters we've talked about every single week. You have a rhythm, you're steady, you feel calm and centered. You sit down to your laptop and you know what you're going to say. That alone is growth. That's huge. So proud of you for that. And then something subtle happens, begins to stir inside of you. You start to wonder why some content feels more alive and other content feels flat. Even though both are thoughtful and well written, you notice that certain posts draw people in quietly and deeply, while others pass by with polite engagement. The question right there is where this chapter lives. What turns consistency into captivation? Because consistency builds recognition, it builds familiarity, and it builds trust through repetition. But captivation builds emotional attachment. And emotional attachment is what keeps someone reading to the end. It's what makes them forward your email. It's what makes them say your name in a room you're not in. And let me tell you, what I've observed over the last 3 decades of brand conversations is that captivation happens when your content carries your inner world. There's a difference between explaining what you do and revealing how you see. When someone reads your words and feels your perspective, something settles inside of them. Their nervous system recognizes that coherence we talk about, and the language feels shaped by lived experience. The tone feels lived in, real, authentic, so different. And that recognition creates a depth of content and connection that nothing else can do. And that depth is magnetic. I'm sure you've experienced this yourself. You read something and it feels like someone articulated a thought you've carried privately for months, maybe as a mom, with menopause or something. You're like, yeah. You feel seen in a way that doesn't feel exposed. You feel connected. That's captivation. That's resonance. And it's quiet and it's powerful with your content. Early in my business, my marketing was strong. It was strategic and clean and structured and all those things, like what marketing should be. Clients hired me, projects moved, results were there, and yet there was certain thinness to my own visibility. The words were accurate, they described my services, they explained the outcomes we had, but they didn't always carry me. When I began letting more of my lived thinking into the room, something changed for the business, for our connections. I shared the behind the scenes recalibrations. I talked about the tension of building while mothering. I described the mental weight of holding clients' dreams alongside my own. Those were not some kind of dramatic confession that I was making, like on some talk show or something. Those were the ordinary truths of my life. Those were the ordinary truths that carried texture and richness. That's when people started writing back with a different tone. I felt this. That's exactly it. I never heard someone say it like that. You talked about it and I tried it and it worked. Captivation lives in that space. It grows when you allow your voice to reflect how you actually process the work. So what creates that shift? Let's talk about 3 elements that deepen content from consistent to captivating. First is perspective. You have lived through things your audience is currently navigating. And when you describe what you see from that vantage point, your content carries an authority without ever needing to actually claim it. Authority in this space comes from pattern recognition. It comes from noticing what repeats. It comes from sitting across from hundreds of founders and hearing the same sentences spoken in slightly different ways. And when you speak from that pattern recognition, your message feels deeply anchored. That's where blog posts and books come from and talks come from. Second is emotional specificity. Instead of saying overwhelmed, you describe the 27 open browser tabs and the half-written captions and the way the day feels full before it even begins, or the third time I've heated up my coffee because I'm so busy. Instead of staying confused, you describe a spiral of rewriting your bio for the fourth time and still feeling slightly disconnected from the words. Just isn't there yet. When language mirrors lived experience, the brain can relax. Recognition lowers the resistance and it feels familiar. And that familiarity creates a level of captivation. Third is congruence. Captivation deepens when your content matches your actual leadership. So if you're calm in your sessions and urgent in your marketing, the mismatch creates subtle friction. And if you're thoughtful in real life and performative online, the gap is felt even when it isn't named. Congruence is powerful because it reduces cognitive noise. The brain loves coherence. When your voice sounds the same across platforms and across months and across conversations, trust will deepen naturally. You are who you say you are. It's hard to not be that month after month. You don't need theatrics to captivate, although I do have a magic wand. You just need alignment fully to who you are and what you do and the clients you serve and the transformation you offer. Okay, so let's talk about something practical right now related to this. Open one recent post in your mind. Imagine reading it out loud. Does it carry your thinking? Does it include the detail? Does it feel like something you would say across the table to a friend over coffee? If it feels safe and polished but slightly distant, you want to add a layer of specificity, a moment, a detail, a reflection. If it feels informative but emotionally neutral, ask yourself what the idea cost you to learn. Share a sliver of that cost. If it feels steady but slightly flat, expand one sentence into a story. When you are not performing just to get attention, you're actually revealing the way you think. So that shift can change everything for you. I want to zoom out just for a minute. In a world where content volume is relentless, captivation becomes a differentiator. Algorithms will shift, platforms will evolve, attention spans fluctuate from 3 seconds to 10 seconds, and who knows what it will be next year. But what remains steady is the human desire to feel understood. Captivation grows through depth of connection, not in volume of output. So when someone reads your work and feels recognized, they will come back. Returning builds that familiarity, and the familiarity builds the trust, and the trust builds momentum. We've said it again and again and again. And momentum, as you said before, compounds when you stay. So there's something worth naming here at this stage. Captivation requires courage. Because when you allow your perspective to shape your content, you risk someone disagreeing with you. And when you tell a story from your real experience, you open yourself up to interpretation and judgment. And yet the founders who become unforgettable are the ones who stay with their voice long enough for it to root. Elise Myers is one of the best people that you can follow, who is always herself. They do not chase every tone shift. They do not rewrite their personality every quarter, and they do not talk about what's light. They deepen. And that depth is where it becomes captivating. You can feel it when you encounter it. You know it at a cellular level that it's happening. So before we close, I want us to try a small action. Choose one thing we talk about often: growth, visibility, leadership, whatever it is. Now ask yourself, what is one lived moment that shaped how you think about this theme? And write about that moment this week. Describe it in sensory detail. Let your audience feel what you felt. Connect that moment to the belief it has formed inside of you. That is how consistent content becomes captivating. And as always, if the conversation connected with you or you believe it and you want to explore more about these chapters more deeply, the Marketing for Entrepreneurs is available on Amazon in its revised edition. And the companion workbook walks you through prompts like this one we just discussed, so you can translate reflection into direction. So before in the poll for deeper personalized insight, please check out the Brand Spark experience. That is where we sit with your actual language and uncover the shimmering thread that makes your work unmistakably yours. It gives you some best steps to take forward. So you can also download the book and workbook from the link in the show notes, and you'll also receive our weekly magic newsletters and some podcast updates, which is a beautiful way for you to stay connected to this work in real time. So next week, we're going to move into follow through and momentum and the quiet discipline that sustains everything that you've built. But until then, I want you to choose what fits your life and stay with it long enough to see what grows.